Well, today is the anniversary of a certain show, and so, I know a lot of people are gonna be mad at me for this, though. How should I say this? I do kinda like My Little Pony. Yeah, I kinda have issues with liking some things that have a significant hate-dom, whether the hate is justified or not. And that includes My Little Pony, more specifically My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Although I don't have as much fondness of the show compared to a lot of others, I still see quite a couple of people still like MLP FIM even now, despite the fact that the show ended 6 years ago. So I want to tell how I first encountered MLP, and how I began thinking of MLP as time went on, and what I think of the show now. Not very surprisingly, when it comes to my background, I first knew about MLP FIM through the Thomas fandom, and it was from a video relating to Blue Mountain Mystery, and eventually a video relating to The Adventure Begins. Surprisingly, the Blue Mountain Mystery one is still up even now. And my only initial thought with seeing the MLP characters was, what the heck is this? Yeah, my initial thought was, okay, what the heck? Mostly because when I was a kid, I had mostly isolated myself from a lot of non-trained stuff. And although I had been watching some select non-trained cartoons, seeing the MLP characters at first felt like a bit of whiplash for me. Eventually, as time went on, I'd see more of MLP through a mix of the TV, merchandise, and I would meet one person around my age when I was 13 who'd often reference MLP in our group relating to friendship, as I had problems with getting friends at the time, especially since this was middle school, one of the worst times of my life by far. And honestly, I kind of felt like my mom and dad were forcing me to make friendships, which I had struggled to do by that point. It was also around this time, 2018, that I'd start watching some MLP episodes on Dailymotion, as some people had managed to upload episodes of MLP onto Dailymotion, either through full episodes or through reactions to episodes. I would get along with the person in the friend group who liked MLP, and a year later, she showed me the G4 movie when we were hanging out once, as well as an MHA movie since she was an anime fan too, but that's another story. I would also start watching various MLP episodes on the TV around this time. My interest in MLP had increased by a lot by 2019. However, that would also be the tail end of the show's run, and I genuinely wondered what would happen to it, and what would people who liked it do. Soon enough, the show ended on October 12th, 2019. I was sure that a lot of people were pretty sad to see that the show ended, but I was also certain that to those who hated MLP, the reactions were more of my reaction was just, damn, that sucks. I honestly thought that MLP was gonna mostly be kind of forgotten about as time went on, but because of a certain something that happened next year, we all got stuck at home, and I began noticing that there still appeared to have been pockets of MLP YouTube, still making videos, and still talking about MLP. And while my interests by that point were shifting away from MLP, and becoming more interested in video games and anime, it still made me interested in the fact that people would still make videos about MLP well after the show ended. As a friendly reminder about this part, since I've watched a decent amount of episodes but not all of them, I don't think my thoughts will be the same as someone who's seen the whole show from start to finish. Still, bear with me. Now, about the show, I find it fun to watch despite the fact that it is made for mostly grade schoolers, because of the story and plot, and how it's a combination of both relaxed slice of life and intense battles, One episode it's about a series of games, and the next it involves a anime battle. And honestly, if you watched the first episode and realized that the whole concept of MLP was just Princess Celestia telling Twilight that she needed to start touching grass because she couldn't care about anything that wasn't studying, it kinda makes it a little funny to me. In addition, although like any show naturally, they added a lot of characters to the show, they would still manage to make at least one of those characters, Starlight Glimmer, actually have a bit of an important role to play in the last couple of seasons of the show. Honestly, it is nice when a character that gets introduced isn't completely shafted within a few episodes, and actually plays meaningful parts in a show instead of being solely a background character. And honestly, I like Starlight the most out of all the other characters. It totally isn't Amtrak fan influences, I swear. And speaking of background characters, I also find it interesting that despite people assuming that if someone liked MLP, then their favorite character was going to be one of the main characters, aka the main six. From what I've heard, a lot of MLP fans would actually say that it's one of the background characters like Derpy that would be their favorite characters from MLP, which I honestly find super interesting. Also, as a side note on the topic of background characters, in the 100th episode, there's a pony there that's based on Walter White, implying that A, meth exists in the MLP universe, B, there was some in-universe version of Breaking Bad that happened, and C, a pony can actually discover a passion for creating crystal meth and gain a cutie mark from it. In addition, despite My Little Pony being about, well, ponies and horses, there were still also dragons since the beginning of the show, though later on the creators still brought in characters like the Yaks, Changelings, Kirans, and Hippogriffs. As the show aired and had more episodes, I looked at the show gaining new non-pony characters and found it odd that they were doing this. Well, besides the money to make from toys since Hasbro is a toy company. Yet I feel like some of the characters introduced may have had some missed potential. I won't say which one since I'm not a huge MLP fan, although somebody in the comments who is could probably explain more. But I feel like even if some of the characters were made for toys, they should have at least had some better roles. Though when it comes to the show's movie, I think it may have been for the best that most of the non-pony characters were shafted in exchange for the movie focusing mostly on the main six. Though it's kind of funny what they thought of looking at Canterlot just being occupied, basically. After the movie, I was sure that it probably was just some side adventure for the MLP characters that wasn't really going to be part of the main storyline. But even though I had barely watched any of MLP, I was surprised when I saw some announcements and preview clips that made it turn out that the movie was actually canon to Harrison. No. Oh, for crap's sake. Was canon to the show. Sure, some shows have made movies canon to their official storylines, but since I was more of observing stuff going around MLP at that time, I was a bit confused at that. And when seeing the latter seasons, I found out that many people certainly didn't like Season 8. And while the last season was an improvement, it also didn't rank nearly as high as the first 6 seasons. And honestly, seeing how some of the characters change in more ways than one in some instances, I certainly would see someone's point if they said, I love MLP, but Season 8 is kinda crap. Fortunately, from the looks of it, Season 9 does try and tie up a lot of the stuff that Season 8 started, as well as finish a lot of the stuff that had been going on in the rest of MLP by that point. But I now see that even though a lot of people may have found the ending to be a satisfying conclusion, many years after the show ended, I would learn how the original creator, Lauren Faust, had a completely different idea from how the show would have gone, but Hasbro had their own idea, which eventually forced her ousting. Faust didn't want more than 2 alicorns. Hasbro did, and eventually did so, which naturally pissed off quite a few people when it happened. This video has some segments which goes into more detail, shout out to her. And while it's fortunate that the show kept up good quality for as long as it did, I certainly would understand how a lack of Faust would have made fans upset about the changes that were eventually made throughout the show's run. Especially making Twilight Shoreliner, sorry, rail fan, Twilight Sparkle an alicorn. I would have liked to have known how Faust would have continued the MLP storyline if she stayed on board the creative team. And hey, people like me, and a lot of the fans, could only speculate how Faust would have continued the show. Though, speaking of the fans... If there's one thing that I will address now, it's the people who like the show. A lot of people that weren't the target audience, for better or for worse depending on who you're asking, ultimately began liking MLP FIM. And part of that drive towards Friendship is Magic was thanks to 4chan. And if any of you know about 4chan, then it's probably was inevitable that there was going to be some 4chan influences within the MLP community. Although these pockets of the craziest of MLP fans are mostly few and far in between, that has certainly discouraged a lot of people from wanting to watch, let alone like MLP. This certainly isn't new with other fandoms, but if a pocket of fans in a fandom/community, no matter how big or small it is, starts acting so crazy that so many people start to talk about it, then you probably wouldn't want to be in that fandom or community, let alone want to associate with the thing of said fandom or community, no matter what it is, because you would think other people would immediately assume that you're like the crazy fans, whether that be a show, game, transport, trust me, I know the transport part, or whatever. It'd be difficult to want to like Blue Archive when people act like how most of the internet think Genshin Impact players act than actual Genshin Impact players. It'd be difficult to want to play TF2's Man vs. Machine, if not TF2 in general, because there are groups of players who actively kick people just for having one wrong item, not playing the game a specific way, or just playing a game badly. And yes, I actually did have an experience where I was kicked from a casual server just because I was new at TF2 and was doing poorly at Medic. I even could have sworn that one of the guys actually told me to go F myself as I was being kicked. And it'd be difficult to want to associate yourself with MLP when there are people going 4chan mode wearing MLP stuff, and if people bullied you for not liking MLP. Yes, I know someone who got bullied for not liking MLP, and all I can safely say is he's never not held a grudge against MLP since. Though unlike probably a few others, he doesn't flip out if someone says that they like MLP. And speaking of which, naturally when a massive fandom comes about, it's only inevitable that an equal and opposite reaction would occur. That's called a hate-dom. And a massive MLP hate-dom formed. But what really didn't help for MLP at this point was because the show was originally intended for little girls, a lot of these 4chan users coming in were, well, not little and, well, not girls. And because of that, a lot of the MLP hate-dom genuinely sees MLP as pretty much a pedophile breeding ground. Oh my god, I said that wrong, didn't I? I think one of the biggest ironies when it comes to hate-doms because of fandoms is that the hate-dom can still be on the same level of toxicity, if not worse, than the fandom of something that the hate-dom hates. And in some bits of irony, I've seen people who hate MLP be more toxic than people who love MLP. Yet, I will say this about the MLP fandom. The fact that the show got so many people who weren't the target audience to like a show about talking horses, and later on other mythical creatures, is kinda endearing. I hear stories of people who were just grade school boys who liked MLP and showed their passions for it as kids, even if they faced significant taunting along the way. For better or for worse, depending on who you're asking, I feel like Friendship is Magic definitely got a lot of people to not be afraid of saying that you liked something even if you weren't part of the target audience. Heck, you would even see some people putting MLP references in some places, like other games in other media, most notably TF2, which...
Hold on a sec!
Was somebody at Hasbro a Team Fortress 2 fan? That's only a theory. A game theory. Heck, the guy who headed Valve, Gabe Newell, actually did say that he was an MLP fan too, though I can imagine that may have made quite a few people mad. Oh wait, no, it definitely made quite a couple of people mad. And chose to not so subtly reference it in TF2. In conclusion, I think MLP is a good show, no matter how many ups and downs it had during its run, and no matter how many people hated it and still hate it. I wouldn't exactly get angry at somebody for not liking MLP, nor would I flip out as someone loved it. I guess my thoughts as someone who just likes animation in general might be more on the I find it nice but I don't love it side. Although I am certainly not the type of guy who'd best explain it to an audience, let alone a real fan audience, and heck, I never even mentioned the Friendship Express, though I would like to make a full video detailing the Friendship Express eventually, probably, and while many may not like it, I also believe that for those who enjoy the show, it may have shown them that perhaps that friendship really is magic. Happy 15th anniversary to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, everybody. Also, before anybody asks, yes, I saw G5 and it is absolutely the reboot of all time. And by that I mean I don't like it. Okay, bye.